Colleagues, please go back to your seats because the 10-minute break is over. But then I haven't got a quorum yet. Seven.
仲爭過咪1、2、3、4、5、6、7、8咪喎，有啊，梁志祥8個。OK， 我哋夠。
Okay, it's time to resume, and we have already formed a quorum during the last session. Colleagues asked about the escape clause for the administration. Mr. Chen, have you got that clause with you? Chairman, with regard to the escape clause, is very clearly spelled out in the contract, but then there are different scenarios. In simple terms, if the contractor fails to meet the contractual requirements, then generally speaking, we have some clauses to impose a fine on them. For example, if there is slippage in the works, then for each day of delay, there will be a certain amount of fine, or if they are not able to meet the milestone requirement, then they will also be fined a certain amount per day. So generally speaking, we will rely on such clauses to enforce the contract until such time when the contractor is able to meet the contractual requirement. In the event that there have been repeated failures on the part of the contractor, then in the contract there is a clause saying that the government apart from the powers given to the administration under the contract, the government can give them 3 months advance notice before the termination of the contract. And under the circumstances, we must be talking about very serious problems. For example, what we can think of now, well, for example, if the contractor is involved in financial difficulties to such an extent that he is no longer able to run the facility, but then he is not willing to terminate the contract, then the administration will be able to invoke that clause to terminate the contract. Or if the contractor suspends operation, and after repeated advice given to him to resume operation, and if he still doesn't take heed of the advice, then we can also invoke that escape clause to terminate the contract. That's an express provision in a contract. Yes, Mr. Wong. We didn't expect you to go into that detail in a contract. That's why we have not prepared for that. Well, according to the paper, it talks about non-compliance terms. So there are two aspects. One is operational. That is about the cost effectiveness in operation. And second is about environmental effectiveness. So these would be the two main considerations determining whether or not he would have scores deducted, or he will have to be fined or even be terminated. Mr. Lang Kwok Hong, 10th time. Thank you. Now, finally, I've heard what you said. Well, that would be the case for most contracts. There would be this escape clause. But then, all right, this is a DOB contract. In the course of the construction, if there are already problems, then of course he will have to be punished. Okay, so you punish him. And then he will have to run it for 15 years. So if he is found to have done a miserable job when he's constructing it, then can you disallow him to run the facility? Because if it's just a construction contract, then okay, so he does do the construction. But then now he's involved in all three processes. All right, design, we don't know. All right, if the design is not good enough, then of course construction will be difficult. So do you have a comprehensive view about how he is performing? Bureau Director, I think Mr. Leung is asking a very general question. It has no direct relationship with this question. Well, for any DOB contract, there would be this consistent approach. That is a design and build logic, and then for operation is another matter. Generally speaking, the contract will be giving this guideline as to how he should be doing to rectify mistakes. So there is a worldwide practice. So that's the main approach. So only in the very unlikely event that something go badly wrong, that the contract will be terminated. So what you ask might not be directly related to that. So that's the general understanding about any DOB contract. So when you try to ask more specific questions, I hope that you can direct that to this specific contract. That would be more meaningful. Mr. Gary Fan, well, my question is directly related to this. Well, understand that well, in a tendering process, you would only accept contractors that have the ability to undertake an aerobic digestion facility. Only those will be considered. So do you think that that's the most desirable technology? But then when I try to do some research with my friends in the US, it shows that this is a very expensive technology. So when you decided to go for this technology when compared to other food waste processing technology, what are the pros and cons? Why have you taken that decision to go for anaerobic digestion? Bureau Director, it depends on the location. For example, in California, where agriculture is more robust, then of course they can go for some other technologies. But then in Hong Kong's case, it's not appropriate. So to answer, that's the simple answer to your question. Mr. Albert Chan, 11th time. Chairman, we talk about the policy and the related issues, and there was a concern raised by an environmentalist. He reminded me that the Bureau Director might not be telling us the whole truth, because in a consultation, apparently you didn't mention the first phase charging model for the OWTF. That's a member of the public who reminded me of this. That is, in criticizing your policy, you said that that was already decided, but then some environmentalists pointed out that you had not been telling us the whole truth. So can you respond to that? Well, Bureau Director, I said that the consultation has completed, and now we're waiting for the committee to come up with a report. And then next year, in the first half of next year, we will come up with a paper for the panel to address the issues that have been raised during the consultation exercise. That's what I said. Speaker's not coming through. Sorry, speaker's not coming through. Mr. Albert Chan, your time's up. Mr. Leung Kwok Hong. Chairman, I'm a reasonable man, so I just want to reason things out with you. All right, it's a contract. At the time of the construction, if he has done a lousy job, then of course you will have to terminate the contract if he does not meet the standard. All right, you've already issued the yellow card, red card, and so on, and if you find him, but then if the contract has to be terminated, then he will not be allowed to run the facility, right? Well, what he's asking is that at the construction phase, if he has already done a lousy job, and if you have to terminate the contract, does it mean that his operating contract would also be terminated altogether? Chairman, in the construction phase, well, if the contract has to be terminated, then the whole contract will be terminated. Then that's not desirable. So he will lose his operating contract as well. So you will have to get another guy to do the design and build and operating, right? It's not a forum to discuss the DOB approach and how it should be interpreted. It doesn't have a direct link with this project in question. At the construction phase, if a contract has to be terminated, then generally speaking, that would be the last resort. That would be very rare, and therefore we do not have to read too much into it. Mr. Albert Chan, Well, a simple question requiring simple answer. Some environmentalists said that we are actually talking about an environmental hegemony. All right, we have the property hegemony because we only have a handful of companies monopolizing the situation. So how are you able to ensure that there will not be another oligopoly involving environmental companies and so on? Because we don't want a particular company to win a contract making a profit of several million or tens of millions of dollars. We're talking about food waste, and we are adopting a multi-pronged approach in dealing with that. For example, for the eco park, there are different companies involved, and for food waste, there are different companies being involved, and also we have the recovery or recycling fund. So there are different extent of participation. So I'd like to stress that we are talking about a diversified approach, whether or not small or medium-sized or even large companies, they would be involved. But then how are you able to ensure that there will not be any manipulation by the larger companies of this facility? Because in the end, we would end up having the same case as Cyberport. Well, for food waste dealing, as I said, there are different sizes of companies being involved. Thank you. Mr. Lam Kwok Hong. Chairman, well, green business is a very major business, and of course there are different people involved. In Hong Kong, we do not have any antitrust law, and most enterprises or cartels have emerged as a result of the processing or manufacturing process. All right, that's what Mr. Albert Chan was asking. All right, do we have any legislation to prevent the emergence of cartels? So that's very simple. So if you don't, then just tell us you don't have that, and then we will have to look into it, and then we will ask the Secretary for Justice to come again to show us how he can get around this. I'd like to remind you, Mr. Leung, that this has nothing to do with the subject under discussion. Well, he asked this, but then it's him asking the question. But then I'm reminding you that what you're saying has nothing to do with this issue under discussion. Mr. Albert Chan? 13th time. All right, for food waste, well, you're looking at commercial food waste, and some say that you're actually saving money for the commercial enterprises or entities, because through this facility you are actually subsidizing them. So how are you able to ensure that this is not another form of transfer of benefit, helping the consortium to save money, and you're using public money to do that? Bureau Director, well, for commercial food waste, the collection efficiency would be higher because they can be collected in bulk. That's why, after consideration, we believe that that's the main approach. But then we do not rule out the possibility of collecting domestic food waste as well. And the fact that we have a series of facilities, we will be going for both domestic and commercial food waste. So what you said simply is out of the question. All right, the thing is you're collecting commercial food waste, but then for domestic food waste, that will have to be collected by private collectors. So you're helping the commercial establishments, not the residential ones. Bureau Director, let me clarify. Well, we try to take reference from overseas experience for commercial food waste, whether or not it's delivered to the future facility or to the landfill. They will have to pay a particular charge. So it's not true that the government is funding everything. So it's not like what you said, that we are subsidizing the business sector. Mr. Gary Fan. Thank you, Chairman. It's again a follow-up question. Just now, you talk about an assessment having been made. So when it applies to cost effectiveness, you said that the quantity is large. That's why you will have to run this facility using public money. So was it in the form of a report, and how much time was spent on making the assessment? Well, in Hong Kong, in the private sector, you have management companies running the collection of food waste in large housing estates and so on. So how did you do the assessment? Well, I'll ask my colleagues to supplement. My understanding is that we did the planning for the Siu Ho Wan facility, and in the process of our study, we looked at what we should do. We should be going for the easier ones first. So it's a matter of setting priorities. Well, in 2011, we did the feasibility study, and then there was an EIA. We also look at the current food waste situation, how it's collected, and why phase 1 should be targeting business enterprises. And also in 2012, we consulted the ACE, and then in 2014, we consulted it again. We set out all the justifications when we consulted them. All right, Mr. Leung Kwok Hong, speaking for the 13th round, and every time you just make comments instead of asking questions. So are you going to continue like that? For how many more times would you be speaking like that? Well, I will not take long. Well, in the business sector, they said that they would have to pay a price when they try to echo what you advocate. So my question is, why are you not charging them anything at all? Mr. Au? Well, let me clarify. In fact, for the business sector, when they have to dispose of their waste, they will have to hire their own people to transport the waste to the landfills. And after the facility is completed, they will also have to engage their own contractors who will transport the food waste to our OWTF. So from their perspective, the cost would be more or less the same. Mr. Leung Kwok Hong, what I meant was, why didn't you charge them? When they deliver the food waste to your plant, they should be charged. Chairman, as I said, is the polluter pay principle. So that's how we converge with the international community. Alan Leung, second round, 3 minutes. Chairman, I'd like to ask about page 6, para 15, K and 16, para 16. All right, para 15K, there is a contingency cost, a contingency fee of $128 million. And in para 16, subject to funding approval, the administration will be facing the expenditure as follows. So you will see that if you look at the third column, well, the total, or the second column from the left, the total cost will be $1,410.5 million. So it's about $1.4 billion. So with regard to the $128 million, so if you divide that into 5 years, then the annual that will be counted as the annual expenditure. And how would that be featured in the total cost breakdown? Well, for the $128 million under contingency, that would depend on the way we commence the projects. Basically, we'll be looking at the construction phase. We may have to deal with certain contingency situations. So that would be featured depending on the situation. All right, you talk about $178 million under B, and if you look at the table in para 16, in the third and fourth column, there is a full account as to how that will be spent for the $178 million. You will have to look at it, because there is a price adjustment factor, and there will be a gradual yearly increase. So that would gradually go up from 1 to 1.26248. But then for the $128 million under contingency, are you going to divide that into 5 and then add it to the annual cost, or is it going to depreciate on a yearly basis? Because initially you'll be putting more in the upfront. So, or is it in the reverse manner?
Because it is a contingency fee, I'd just like to clarify these accounts. Mr. Au, basically, we will look at the construction situation. Basically, it would be done on a pro rata basis. What is the pro rata basis like? We are going to do it on the basis of the pro rata use of the construction cost. Let me be simpler. Can you not give me an enumeration analysis so that we arrive at 1410.5 in the second line of para 16? We will supply the detailed information after the meeting. No other members have questions. I'll draw a line there because I think you are repeating your questions. And some members have already come in with dozens of motions to be moved under 37A. I need 10 minutes to deal with them, and then we'll come back and process them. We'll resume at 5:40.